Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the Brutal Truth About Sales and Selling podcast. Today we're going to be talking to somebody who's been at a company almost 7 years now, selling to small, medium-sized retail businesses, a tough market, selling technology, getting them to upgrade their system. And we're going to talk through all the challenges of this. And this came through my LinkedIn request to find the very best salespeople out there, judged by their peers. This has really proven to be a great, effective way of finding out new people, non-technical sales experts, somebody who can come on the show and share what they've gone through, their journey, because it really relates to what we're all doing. We're all trying to figure out how to sell our stuff better, faster, and bigger. And that's what it's all about. So Travis is coming on the show. He's going to share his story, go through his process. And I think that you're really going to enjoy this interview. Before we get into it, I want to make sure you're checking out Pipedrive. They just came out with an enterprise version. This company's on fire. I just talked with them on the phone this week. We're going to be doing a lot of work together on a lot of sales tools that'll be available at pipedrive.com. They love the podcast. They love what we're doing here, and they want to help the community out as much as possible. And they've gotten a lot of automation built into Pipedrive. So Pipedrive is no longer just the individual CRM or the small company CRM. They've got customers in the thousands now. So it's really a much easier, simpler way of keeping track of things. So even if you're forced to use some other product, you all need to have your own CRM. Everybody says, well, isn't LinkedIn enough? Well, you don't have phone numbers, emails. You don't have all the history with LinkedIn. Yes, LinkedIn's great. I love it, but it's just not enough. So go to pipedrive.com. Brutal Truth is a coupon code. You get a free month with that. So just check it out. Also, Nudge. Nudge is back. Nudge is doing great work with their LinkedIn Chrome plugin. So now you can find out how you're connected with everybody while you're in LinkedIn. So check that out. They also have the free month of the professional version with the Brutal Truth coupon code. You can check out the links and everything in the show notes. Hey, have you checked out Co-Video? Video emails are crushing it. Also, at the very end, I'll sum up the courses. We got a new course coming out January 1st on how to use power questions, how to design the questions, and get away from talking about you and who you are and what you do, because guess what? Until they're interested, no one cares. And I'm going to show you how to build that up, how to get curiosity, build interest into commitment, and to take action. So I hope you enjoy that. Go to b2brevenue.com. You get a free ebook there. You can also check out the courses, b2brevenue.com. And here we go with Travis. Hey, Travis, thanks for joining us today. As a way of getting started, tell us about yourself.
That first name is Tavish, Tavish. Spend my whole life explaining my name to people, but Tavish Johnson. I'm really the sales manager for new business, so the business development manager at Windward Software. I'm actually originally based out of Penticton, British Columbia, so Western Canada is where our head office is, and I actually moved down to Chicago about 4 years ago, just to open at the time a satellite office, and we've grown this office over the years. And I've kind of oversee a few services for the company now, but really my main job is new business. So that's running reps out of Canada and US, chasing new business for Windward Software.
Cool. How'd you get into sales?
Long story short, I originally started actually in digital media. I went to film school. I was in sound recording, stuff like that. And I took a job in retail when I was about 20 years old. And I did retail management for about 5-6 years, which was more consumer sales. And, eventually you get a little exhausted with retail, and I wanted to get into B2B. So that led me to leverage my retail skills to get into a software company where we sell point of sale, inventory, CRM, accounting, things like that. So never looked back. I don't regret that switch from digital media over to sales. I like the thrill of sales.
And you're selling into a pretty tough market, isn't it?
Point of sale is not only is it a tough market, but it's often a misunderstood term. We often get lumped in with credit card processors and, quoting systems that maybe don't do inventory. So yeah, it's definitely a competitive landscape.
And who do you call on? Is it small?
Yeah, our main market is anywhere from mom and pop shops up to small regional chains. So that could be a 1 to 50 location type retail or wholesale business. We do have some niche industries that we've kind of excelled at and built functionality for, but really, if you got inventory, you buy and you sell inventory, you got customers, whether B2B, B2C, our software could potentially be a fit for your operation.
And how much of your business is kind of inbound versus outbound?
Ooh, as far as the ratios, I mean, the majority of the deals that we actually close are coming in from web leads or incoming calls. I think as a percentage, we're probably 40% sales going from outbound activity.
Okay.
We've been a very high volume cold call team traditionally. And what I'm doing, we've been around for 30 years and through the 90s, the 2000s, high volume cold calling. And what I'm trying to do is introduce some more creative ways to prospect while still maintaining at least some KPIs on the cold call prospecting side, just to get the quantity.
Okay. Well, let's get into the creative part. Anything particularly sticking so far?
Great question. Yeah. So one big thing. So our head office is in a town of 30,000 people, and there's pretty limited market. We've done really well in that market, but it's there's no major urban centers within a couple hours drive. So one of the biggest things we did is just get reps out of that office and out of that smaller marketplace. Great place to do business, but when chasing new business, biggest thing we did was we now have a rep in Austin, Texas. We got a few reps in Chicago, and we've actually been toying with the idea of visiting Toronto or Calgary, which are major Canadian markets. We already have lots of clients there, not super creative, but just boots on the ground, right? Shaking hands, building relationships, not being just a voice on the other end of the phone is probably one of our main missions right now, is doing some relationship sales.
And is that obviously helping you with upsell and referral?
Exactly. So our biggest thing, and even for myself, like I've been doing a lot of trade shows, and I try to make a really conscious effort if I'm in a city for a trade show, especially where we don't necessarily have boots on the ground sales wise. I'll try to get out and visit some clients, do some drops for prospects, just to feel a little bit more human the next time I need to call on that client and ask for a referral or a reference. So really it was actually even a corporate initiative about 2 years ago to connect and engage, right? Get back to the personal relationships that built the company and the trust that we were able to leverage time in and time out. And not necessarily that we lost trust, but we obviously got into more of a less personal, outbound cold call at a desk type environment. And that's what I'm trying to pull back the other direction. And so far, we've had some good success with that.
Yeah, because the phone has kind of become less and less effective over time.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that we did is actually split our business developer role in two. We actually have a sales agent team now, which does our high volume calling, which has freed up some time for the business developers to simply look at their pipelines, look at where it needs attention, what industries and prospects should we be calling to fill that pipeline up, and get creative with things like LinkedIn or site visits, right? Again, just getting out of that fed list and starting to get creative with how they prospect and who they prospect to.
And is the person you want to contact typically the business owner, or?
You know what? I view it almost like a bell curve, right? If you're in a small mom and pop shop and that's who you're calling, you can identify that usually by checking out the website. Yeah, we go for the owner because usually there's only 3 or 4 other people there anyways. So go for the owner, less bureaucracy, get a quick decision. We're not blind to the fact we've been moving up market, and we're starting to deal with companies who have a full table of C-level, and we need to leverage the influencers in those business to even get the conversations. There's an old theory about the more people you get involved in sales process, the more complicated it can get. Sometimes that's true. Other times, the more advocates you have in that business, if you can sell some of the influencers, then that owner's going to take that meeting and listen a little better. So I've been trying to shift that mindset that, no, we do want to work with the frontline manager. We want them on our side, and that's going to help us actually close the deal when it comes to influencing who cuts the check.
Because I got to imagine, even when you're talking to the owner, they're going to run it by other people, who are using it, who have to either integrate with it or make it part of their life. They're not going to cram it down.
Absolutely. And there's different levels of caring, I'll say, at the ownership level around keeping their people happy. Sometimes, you can detect on the phone when the owner is, I'm going to do this. This is what I need for my business. Let's push ahead, versus other opportunities I'll work where they're very conscious about their staff and putting their staff through a painful process. And obviously I appreciate that. So I try to accommodate that. All right, let's get your team to round up their questions. Let's do some side sessions and get them to a place where they're behind your decision. So it's less disruptive it's less disruptive to implement in their business.
And what's the compelling event or the trigger that would cause them to, invest in your product?
Yeah, that is a great question. There's a couple really key things, and we even look for these when press releases and stuff like that of retail and wholesale companies. A couple key things that usually indicate this person's ready to level up. They add a location. That's usually one of the main pieces. They've been a mom and pop shop. They're now adding locations, and the software they're currently using, which is typically entry-level accounting software, isn't going to accommodate the logistics of multi-location. That's a very clean, easy indicator. A lot of times it's been people bought software 20 years ago, 15 years ago in a licensed model, and they've wrote it till the wheels fall off. And a lot of the times their staff are causing a bit of an uproar to solve this problem. So sometimes it's just more of a generational switch. Hey, their tech's gotten old. Now's the time to look into a new platform. Those are usually key drivers. We're always looking for the pain points and things like that. But before that lead even gets to us, that thought process is obviously started in the owners around, okay, what do I do next with this part of our software?
Yeah, so I got to imagine these are not technically advanced people typically.
The best salespeople can take a complex concept and explain the end result. Not even always demonstrate. You don't always have to click and show the clicks, but you have to be able to explain how we're going to take this really complex process and implement it in a way that not only the owner understands, but that the owner can help their staff with. So yeah, absolutely. The different levels of, quite often we'll call an owner and they say, talk to my IT guy. I don't really want to talk to the IT guy. Well, we need him on board to make sure our platform from a spec and a environment standpoint makes sense. But we want to talk to the people who struggle with process, with actual business workflow, not necessarily that their old system crashes. Okay, yeah, we can solve that. What other pains are we going to solve as far as your day-to-day workflow?
And what are those pains that you try to elicit? I mean, I've been a small business owner or investor, and they originally started with paper.
Yeah.
And cards, and I'm like, no, you gotta, we went through the PC stuff, and then when the cloud came.
Yeah, totally. And I think, I would say the most common pain point, the difference is we work in 12 different industries, companies that either sell, service, or rent product. So the pain points can vary greatly, but I'll say probably the key thing, another thing we look for is redundant data entry, where they're invoicing in one system or no system, a pen and paper, and they're re-entering it into accounting. They're using a third platform for CRM. That's usually a universal pain point, is redundantly entering data and not centralizing the business information. So that's a really obvious one, where we're going to put all these pieces into one platform, and that customer record gives you a 360 view of what's going on with new opportunities, with past purchases, maybe a customer complaint, whatever might be occurring with that customer. You're not jumping from different platforms trying to figure it out.
Now, you wrote a great piece on LinkedIn about how to lose a deal and still win. What motivated you to do that?
So
you've lost a deal?
Yeah, what? It's funny. It's funny timing.
I've never lost it. No.
Yeah, we lost a big deal this week. Let's put it this way. I don't mind losing a deal because it brings closure. It bugs me, but it brings closure. I would rather lose the deal, know why, and move on to the next than have opportunities that linger, right? I think as a salesperson, knowing when an opportunity has gone stale and you keep beating it up, trying to convert, that's not only mentally is that tough, but it's also becomes a time waster. Your priorities are getting sucked down this rabbit hole of somebody who will habitually research. So I like the closure that comes with winning or losing a deal. As long as we learn from that, as long as we adjust, we share that information with the team, we do share every win, why they bought, things like that. We don't necessarily share why we lose with the team, but we do track that in our opportunity metrics. And I make sure to run typically annually a reasons lost report. Why did we lose this? And then bring it to the exec team. Let's examine this. How many price discussions came up? How many functionality discussions? What was that functionality that caused us to lose, so that we can continually at least attempt to address those if we see that it's a wide enough trend.
Yeah, I mean, I remember losing a very big deal, and I did the commission equation, and I just said that was my 6-figure mistake and lesson.
Counting the money before it lands is pretty
well, not so much from that perspective, but let's say you go to Harvard for a year and you spend $60,000.
Yeah.
Right. And you look at that as an investment. You look at that as a education.
Right.
Now, when you lose a deal, if you don't learn from that, you paid for the education, but didn't get the lesson.
Yeah.
And
exactly it.
And I bet you learned more from losing a deal than winning.
You know what's actually interesting too? So that, and even in that little article, since that, the person actually inbounded again months later. They bought this competitor system and it was falling flat on its face in implementation. And we actually got a second stab at it. I won't get into the details of why we ended up not winning it the second time, but the person circled back to us, and that was a big piece of exiting gracefully. I especially knew with that specific opportunity that he was an influencer in a buying group. So a big strategic play for us is, yes, we have all these individual business owners, but quite often in retail, they're part of a bigger buying group or an association where they talk. And in that specific example, this person, he had friends in other opportunities that we were chasing, and it's really important to keep people at least with a positive impression about your company, win or lose.
Well, I got to imagine that with small SMB, small and medium businesses, that the network is insanely influential.
They're pulling together. I mean, buying groups, the concept has been around for a long time, but the buying groups are actually getting quite powerful in the sense where they can compete with some bigger chains. And there's quite often they're co-op owned, right? So they're owned by the actual the retailers. They'll have boards and stuff like that. And that, that's been a great actually B2B outlet for us, is building those relationships at the high level, making sure you still take care of the business owners, but that you're leveraging that center of influence with the buying group, either the key retailers in that group that people look to, or of course there's the exec level of these buying groups, but quite often it's those key retailers that other people talk to, do site visits on. And if our system's in play there, and positive things are being said, that's the best type of marketing you can get.
Oh, to kind of dig up some of those painful experiences, what were some of the reasons you lost that were owned by sales as opposed to the product or the company?
Yeah, it's interesting. So there's always the balance of, sometimes we get afraid to be aggressive.
Yeah.
And, it's actually funny too, because I'm a Canadian company versus US. I've worked in both markets and I've seen the styles, not to generalize an entire nation.
So aggressive.
I'm conscious about somebody who is overly cautious, and sometimes you have to give that nudge. And those are the deals where I think sales owns the loss, is when we had an opportunity. They said price wasn't they said price was a concern, or timelines were a concern, and we buy it, we accept it, and we schedule the follow-up 6 months down the road. Those are the things that I keep an eye out. And actually one of the activities that I have my sales team do is open their pipeline and sort by last contacted date. So go and sort by the ops that you have not talked to in the longest time, and make those a priority to either work them to completion, win or, I guess I would say, work them to completion, win or lose. Let's get those out of the stalemate that we're in, and keep momentum on it. So that would be a sales owned reason for losing a deal, is consistency and not being afraid to just speak honestly.
How about like sticking with one person and hoping or believing that they have all the juice?
Yeah, I mean, that to me, that lesson comes with experience. But you're right. You do, every time I get a new rep, I have to make sure I explain to them, really be cautious about what this person's saying they have influence to do. The best example with that I'll give is consultants, where Obviously, consultants can be a great center of influence for us, but quite often we'll get a deal in play where everything is funneling through the consultant because that's their job. But misinformation happens between us as a vendor and the actual business owner. And that is a very thin line to walk, when to cut the consultant out and go to the horse's mouth, so to say, because that can burn the deal as well. That's you have to have a bit of a sales radar to know. And quite often the proper way to do that is just to ask the consultant, hey, I feel like we're losing some momentum on this topic. Do you mind if I reach out to the owner directly?
Yeah. And typically they want to be kind of a gatekeeper, but that's a major red flag.
Yeah.
Because they're playing you.
Absolutely. And they're playing the three other competitors that are in the play, right? So.
And I got to believe that your business, it's really a timing business, that you could probably be talking to somebody for a couple of years and that you're waiting for enough pain or some business event that will compel them to actually make the investment. Is that a big deal?
Absolutely. And especially with, for a company who's been around as long as we have, 1984, we started in the furniture industry. Wow. So before my time, well, obviously, but I'll get leads and I'll go to assign them. Right. Or marketing will assign them, depending who's covering that. And I'll see that they engaged in 98, 2003, 2007, over and over with different reps. And obviously we still work it, but I talk to the person about that. I talk to the owner. Hey, what's changed? What's happened? You've looked at this 6 or 7 times. I laugh. Sometimes I'll even show them our CRM records about all the different gatekeepers they've had take our calls over the year, right? As a laugh. Obviously, I make sure our reps keep our CRM appropriate, right? But that's been kind of a factor in those reemergence deals where somebody pops back up, and I make sure they know, hey, I can tell you've been thinking about this for 15 years because we have the activity, right? We can see that. So what's changed? Why is the timing right now? And then honing in on that answer.
And it sounds like you really make the investment in getting to know these people instead of trying to work them through a process and either close it out or.
We try to. It is difficult because the majority of our sales are still over the phone and in demos. One thing that I just sat through a webinar last week actually on using video in sales process. And I think most of my staff have till the end of October to come up with a creative use of video. And I'm not talking running through a demo. I'm talking about send a proposal via video and show your face, introduce yourself, right? Make it a bit more personal. So that's one tool that we've tried to deploy with an inside sales team or somebody sitting at a desk to get that connection and make it feel more human. You don't have to buy from people you like, but it sure helps, right? Or at least somebody that you feel comfortable with.
And it goes to your article. I mean, if somebody doesn't know, like, and trust you, they're not going to tell you why they're not going to buy from you. No matter, they just won't. They're exactly. It's like, I'm not here to educate you. Right?
Yeah. And people are generally, another great generalization, we are uncomfortable with conflict a lot of the times.
Yeah.
And telling a salesperson that you spent a lot of time with that I'm not going your way can be a tough thing for some people. We need to make it easy for them to come to us with the answer, with the question, whatever, win or lose, right? Concerns, bring that to us, let us address it, versus it being this, this albatross in their mind about, I don't think I can go with Windward because of this thing, or I need to go this other direction, and leaving that salesperson hanging. So we really try to set the tone early that just let us know. Win or lose, let us know. You got concerns, bring it back to us. Even if that extends the sales process, let's hash that out now versus us thinking we're 90% of the way there and they've already mentally moved on.
And that's it, because nobody, if you ask somebody, do I look fat in these pants? It's like, you're not going to hear yes, right? No, you look fantastic.
Yeah. It also,
that muffin top really does to you.
Sometimes you want to own your weaknesses as well. And that doesn't mean you get on a call and start talking about the things you don't do well, but by identifying the pros and cons of your solution, you're also building trust that, hey, this person isn't just sugarcoating everything at me. Show me 5 good things and then one thing where we need some work or that might not be the best flow for their business. Transparency, build that trust. One line I always say is, okay, I'm going to put my sales hat on now. and ask a tough question about closing or something like that, giving the indication that really for that hour prior where we're talking demo, I'm just trying to understand your business and where this will work, where this won't. Because not only does it help them make a decision, but it helps me know whether this is a fit for us, right?
Yeah, and I think it also keeps that communication channel open and honest and sincere. And you're admitting that you're not perfect for everybody, and you just want to understand it.
Absolutely, yeah.
You don't want to work on a deal that's not going to close, and they don't want to buy a product that doesn't fit.
Yeah. And one challenge over the years has been email. Some people, on a prospect level, only want to communicate via email, where it can be very tough to have those honest, frank discussions. So I really encourage my reps, if you get a long list of questions via email, unless they specifically are just looking for data point, bullet points, schedule a meeting to answer those questions. Go through it, review it, and discuss it. Right? Build that relationship versus just a quick, here's your 6 answers. Talk to you next week type thing.
That's it. Now I'm seeing a lot of reps having a lot of success with video emails and video sharing on LinkedIn, and it doesn't have to be about you, the product or the company. It can be about your journey.
Exactly.
About the culture of your company, what you're doing, about, going to visit a customer and what they said and what the problems they're facing.
It's the stories, right? We all love storytelling, and you're right. The video doesn't have to be 6 bullet points of why we're great for this industry. It can be a story of client conversion where this is where they were before, this is where they're after, this is their story. One thing that from a marketing standpoint, which I think most businesses do this, but we try to capture those stories, and we actually have an internal database of stories, right? Of client events that occurred and what people have told us through different boot camps and workshops that we've run over the years about their before and after experiences with interacting with us. And that's not always product related. It helped my business, but I've really gotten to know this person at your company, and they've helped me through these problems, and it's been great working with you. Those type of stories are equally as powerful.
And that way you kind of get your market, your prospects as part of your community instead of just this vendor-client relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I've been toying with the idea of is coming up with like a preferred, not a preferred, what should I say, a client engagement program, something where it says, hey, you like our platform. What can we do for you to keep you engaged as far as feedback for where the product should go? Yeah, I might lean on you for a couple references this year, but let's get your input and help you out and have more participation with current clients. That's something, even though that's not even actually my section of the business, that's the account management team. That helps me with new sales if we have clients more engaged and we take their feedback and action it.
Yeah. I mean, when I first got into sales back when VCRs were around, I would go and videotape customers, literally a 5-minute video, and I would make the VCR cassette and I'd bring it on sales calls with me. And there's nothing better than listening to another customer. That way it doesn't have to be an interactive reference call.
Yeah.
And I showed the CEO of it. We did one at our annual review, and he almost hugged me. He was like, you're playing at a whole nother level.
Yeah. Yeah, leveraging that content over and over again versus.
And this is a long time before smartphones or even flip cameras. I mean, it was big. Hey, Tavish, I really appreciate you joining us today. Where can people go to connect with you and learn more about your company?
Absolutely. So windwardsoftware.com is our website. I'll give you my direct line, 312-765-7027. I handle all new sales for North America. We do actually have an Australian office as well. So wherever you're listening from, give me a ring if you're interested in learning more. That's Tavish Johnson with Windward Software, 312-765-7027 out of our Chicago office here.
I think that what we learned from that is really you have to be creative. You have to learn your market, understand what they care about, talk to them about their issues, and build relationships with them so that when the timing is right, that you're the one that's there at that time. I think that's a great story. Also, I want to make sure you're aware you can talk to me about the courses. If you have any questions to see if they're a match for you, there's two major ones. If you're having a hard time getting meetings, starting new conversations in a new market space with new people, you're not getting enough inbound, and you want to turn your prospecting into a machine and even outsource some of it so that you can have your week just booked up with meetings, then start the conversation, get the meetings, the course for you. You can schedule a 15-minute call with me. I just ask that you kind of self-qualify yourself by listening to a couple of podcasts, be in the complex sale, and understand what you want. So you can just go to b2brevenue.com and schedule a 15-minute session with me. And in the courses, if you're already signed up, I'm doing one-on-ones at no cost. That means we have a 30-minute window to talk about the course and how it's applied to what you're selling and to get feedback. And it's free as long as I can share the content with everybody else in the course. And the link to that is in the first chapter of the course, the office hours chapter. Please check the office hours chapters for time and date, and the link is in there. Also, hey, have you checked out Discover.org? Discover.org's got some great new stuff. They've got some webinars, bunch of great content, and they've got a great amount of information. So instead of digging through the internet all the time, you can have it all in one place, all easy to get to, really simple, super simple. And Co-video is happening. Check out their company page and all my company pages too. All the podcast pages, The Brutal Truth, Sales Questions, B2B Revenue. I had a great interview on the B2B Revenue show last week. We had Lisa Welsh, who's the VP of Sales over Exactly. She talks about how to make a product a must-have. Definitely worth checking out. And I really appreciate everybody who connects up with me on LinkedIn and shares the content on LinkedIn. It really helps support the show, and I really appreciate it. We'll see you next time at b2brevenue.com. So that's it. I really appreciate it. And please tell somebody about the podcast and let me know if I can help you in any way. Oh, and you want to hear some results from the course? Well, here you go.
You know, I love the approach. It's working for me just fantastic. If I sent you some of the emails, which I should, the conversations that I'm having with people, I think you'd be blown away because they're not really about work. Yeah. I've figured out if you can kind of get personal with them, like one lady, it's all about her family, kids. And then I sprinkled in a little bit around work, and she's LinkedIn, sending me messages on LinkedIn, photos of her family. No, I'm not even kidding. I should show this to you. You'd be stunned. I was shocked. And we're going to lunch on September 6th. And yesterday she shot me a LinkedIn message and said, "Hey, Ron, why don't we get on the phone and do a video call beforehand so our lunch isn't so awkward? We're like barely not meeting each other for the first time." Oh, holy cow, right? Like, this is unbelievable. So this is not the first time that this has happened. She's kind of an extreme, but I'm starting to figure out a pattern where I can actually make this a process, you know? So
good. Yeah.
I'll show you that. So it's getting to that point. And every time I do this, I'm like, God, this is unbelievable, you know? So.
And it feels better too, doesn't it?
Oh, Brian, let me tell you something. To be able to go to lunch with her, I'll even talk to her on the phone, right? We're going to talk about family, kids, work-life harmony. Because I shared a thing with her from Bezos about work-life harmony. This is where the conversation will start. Now, at some point, we're both not stupid, right? We know we're going to talk about work. We know why we're both there. Right. But to kick it off this way is so much better. And to end that lunch with the last 5 to 8 minutes of telling, well, what are you guys doing with digital